It's like pretty much like Remi's.
Should I introduce myself?
Check. What's next? Next question.
Hey guys, I'm Rémi Gauvin.
My name is Jesse Melamed.
Hi. My name is Andréane Lanthier Nadeau, and this is a bike check of my Rocky Mountain altitude that I will be racing at the World Enduro this year. So on my bike, I actually run the 36 still. It's a personal choice. I feel pretty happy with it. I think I can be in a really good range of the settings for the fork to work optimally. So that's a personal choice that might be different from the guys.
This year I'm running the Fox 38, and it has 170 mil of travel in the fork. It's running really nice.
It's got that nice orange looking suspension, Fox 38 on the front, Grip 2 damper with maybe a little bit of special tune in there from Jordy. I run 76 PSI right now. Rebound is pretty open, compression is pretty closed, 2 volume spacers.
I run about 76 to 78 PSI in my fork. I have 1 volume spacer in there. And yeah, it's all tuned by Jordy, so I got all the special goods. And yeah, my coil is also choice that I made. My coil is a 425 spring. I run my high-speed compression open, and low-speed compression is like not too open. My rebound is pretty much smack dab in the middle or a click or two faster.
In the rear, I'm running the Fox Float X2. We got my tune here. It's CL001, JCR010, 0 volume spacers. If you want this setup, you should Instagram Jordy, and I think he could hook you up.
In the rear, I've been running a coil ever since I got on one 2020. We have a pretty progressive bike on this one, so I find the coil ramps up quite a bit, so I can kind of allow my travel to blow through a bit, because coils are very linear and they kind of just like blow through, but with the progressive linkage, it actually kind of stays within its range pretty well. That also has a new tune from Jordy, and I'm kind of just testing these things out. And that one, again, rebound's pretty open. Compression right now is in the middle. I run a 400-pound spring. And then driving that shock is our Ride 9 chip here, and I like the other two. I'm in position 3. It gives us a little bit more travel, gives this a little bit less progressivity, and kind of just mainly for the geo. I was finding, because I run an angle set in the front, it was a little bit too slack, so I wanted a little bit more weight over my front wheel. The first race we're going to this year is Scotland, so it's a little bit flatter and a lot of focus on cornering, so I really wanted to get my front wheel weighting right so that I can corner properly, because it's something that I struggle with more than just going fast in a straight line.
Right now I'm running it in position 3, which I like the geometry of this position. It gives me a nice bottom bracket height, good head angle, and the most travel of all the positions. So
yeah, so geometry and mullet talk, I guess, 3. Apparently that's the best one, so you should put it at 3. Anyone that puts it at 1, quit doing that. I also run 165mm cranks because I am running this bike in a mullet setup, so it like slightly changed my geometry, and I just like was already thinking about going to 165 before I switched to mullet, so the switch to mullet was just like, all right, let's just do that switch as well. And
I like the 165 just for clearance over obstacles when you're climbing and pedaling. And bolted on those are the Crank Brothers Mallet DH Super Bruni edition.
So attached to my 165mm XTR Shimano cranks, there is the Mallet E Crank Brother pedal. That's my go-to.
They are a little bit smaller than the DH. They have these chamfered edges, which like you can kind of hit rocks, and when you hit them, they just glance off a little bit more. Shimano XTR 4-piston trail brakes, tons of power, 203mm rotors. I don't find I have any need for any more. They got good modulation.
4 pistons, lots of stopping power. ice technology.
Big speed, big brakes, big. So for my controls, I run the NextR carbon handlebar. I cut it at 750. I used to do 755 in a bit, but we went to Scotland and there was no room between the trees, so 750 and down from now on.
For the stem, got the turbine, the race face turbine stem in a 40 mil. Bars, I'm running the NextR bar in a 35 mil rise and 760 mil width.
At the front end of the cockpit, race face NextR bars cut to 740, which is actually narrower than I'm allowed to cut them, but don't tell the engineers that. Race face love handle grips and matched with a 40 mil Turbine R stem. Another thing that kind of helps me get more weight over the front wheels, I was on a 35 mil stem and then I was kind of just washing the front everywhere, so the gives me a bit more weight over the front. We got, this custom reformed saddle. I'm on the older mountain bike version, just fits my shape a little bit better, but we got some pretty big indents there for my sit bones. Apparently I got a pretty bony ass. We got titanium rails on those, and I have a 175 mil Fox transfer post.
This is the Fox transfer post, 175 millimeters of drop. Super smooth, super consistent. Bolted on there is the reformed saddle. I don't know if I can talk too much about this saddle, but it is fully custom moldable and super comfy.
I run the dropper post. It goes up, down. I put it down on the downhills, up on the uphills. It works with a lever and the handlebar. Other than that, I also run the reform saddle. It's a pretty cool heat molded custom saddle. So there's like a little element that lives down here and you can plug it in, it heats up and you sit on it for like 5 to 10 minutes and it imprints your sit bones.
Shimano XTR drivetrain. I run the smaller cassette here, it's more compact. It allows me to have what I think is just like smaller chain, smaller derailleur, I have more clearance, less chain slap from a shorter chain. And I have to run a 32 on the front, which my knees aren't too stoked when I grind up climbs, but I just like it. It's a little bit more compact.
Drivetrain, running the XTR drivetrain with a 5110 cassette. Lots of range to climb up hills and still pin it down the fire roads nice and fast. I go between a 32 and a 34 tooth chainring, depending on how steep the climbs are. Right now, for riding at home, I have the 32. Keeping the chain on is the 1UP V3 chain guide. Maybe it's V2, I'm not sure. We gotta be at V3 by now.
No, but for my Shimano drivetrain, I usually go with a 32 tooth front ring. Rarely will I ever think of going up to a 34, like maybe if it's like the last stage of a race and it's like a bike park stage and there's a huge downhill sprint, I might consider, but most of the time, I'll just stick with the 32.
For wheel set, I'm running the Race Face Turbine R, 29 in the front, 27.5 in the rear. I like the Turbine R just for the compliance it gives. The alloy is something that we've tested back and forth between carbon, and we just like the feeling of the Turbine R wheel. And really good flat protection too.
Sometimes we play around with spoke tension too. Trotter will build our wheels with potentially like a little bit of a softer spoke tension, just so the wheel can actually like move and like flex around some obstacles that might be on the trail.
We get multiple races out of each of the wheels really. If we're being smooth, there's odd races where we'll smash them for sure because we're going offline and going crazy, but I've been really impressed with these wheels and they're really easy to set up. The tires just snap on tubeless, it's great. I run Maxxis tires front and back, Assegai 2.5 in the front, DHR2 2.5 in the rear. I've tried different tires, but I kind of just always come back to these as like the tried and true. They work for me. I need like late braking, so I got the DHR2 in the back. I've tried less grippy, faster tires in the front, but I just need that traction on the front wheel to like drive my bike where I want it to go. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with those, both in the Max Grip compound, which just gives you tons of grip, and they wear down a bit quick, but it's worth it.
My tire setup is pretty much consistent. I do Assegai, double down, Max Grip in the front, and then I'll often have a DHR2 but I'll do DH casing in the back and also max grip. In my back wheel, there is also a Cushcore XC. The thinking behind the XC versus the full Cushcore is that if anything happens, I have to be like able to change a flat out on the trails. So I want to be able to do it on my own, and I can do an XC Cushcore in the bush, but full Cushcore, I don't know if I would have the grip strength. So that's kind of that. If anything happens, I can manage.
For tires, I'm running the Maxxis Assegai double down in the front, and again, the Maxxis Assegai double down in the rear as well. I go back and forth between the Assegai and the DHR2 in the rear, just depending on the conditions. The DHR2 rolls a bit quicker, but the Assegai just has grip in like every lean angle of the bike, and it's super consistent and comfortable. It just depends on the track and kind of what I'm feeling. Cushcore XC in the rear, just for that little bit extra flat protection. Cushcore valves, little bling, and then protecting the whole bike is a Ride Wrap clear protection in matte finish.
It's the new, I guess, version 2 of this, and it's got a little bit more a hydrophobic coating, so things actually just kind of fall off the wrap a bit more. And ever since we've wrapped the bikes, I don't think I could go back to not wrapping them, because you clean the bike and this bike's been through a winter of abuse, and the frame looks way nicer than any of the components on the bike. So it does its job pretty well. This bike's borderline on the big side for me, so I've kind of done some work this year. Actually, I've been in middle chip for the last 2 years, and I was finding like, okay, I want to change something on my bike. I want to see if I can eke out some more performance out of this thing. So I swapped to the rear, the short rear in the winter, kind of running it. It was all fine, and then as soon as I started to go fast this year, I felt like I was losing front end confidence. So then I did some work on the suspension, dropped a little bit of pressure in the fork, more weight on the front wheel, and I feel like I've got to a really good balance point. My bike's a bit shorter, and I feel like I can kind of whip it around a bit more. So that's why I don't really feel like I need the Mullet. I think the 29er theoretically rolls over things faster and can go faster, and the way I ride, it's quite upright, so I don't get too many ass buzzes, and so it's not something that really bothers me. So until that is a problem, I'll probably just keep running the 29er, and I don't have to worry about which size tube I put on my bike as a spare. So yeah, no, it's pretty good. It's definitely feeling really good, and we've had a lot of years on these parts, and we've been able to refine things. But I mean, as soon as we switched to race face, I don't think I've really changed much since the first things that they gave us. So it's been really good.